Today's unfiltered guest is no other than the data mind, the one and only Bossnasti. We've gone over, obviously, his whole entire channel over the year, and we know him for collecting all the data from servers and even just wars, right? Which is amazing. But I'm asking him today about how he feels about the game, the data, what it shows about the game, and even controversy that's been going on in his latest channel, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and today's interview with our guest, Bossnasti, on Unfiltered. Right, welcome to Unfiltered, everyone, and yes, we've got the baiting man, Bossnasti, on the channel, the one and only master of data. So, the first question I really want to ask you, like most people probably want to know, what made you get into like collecting data? What made you like so fascinated about, collecting types of data for servers or the game in general?
Yeah, so first and foremost, thanks so much for having me, Snake. The interesting part about the data really actually started when I was playing Rock, and when I started, and this was shortly after I spent my time in 10196, and even though I played a little bit before that, I learned a lot there. And one of the things that they had there was a auditing kind of data department, and I was able to kind of dip my toes a little bit in that, and quickly realized through looking at kill deaths, looking at daily activity, looking at tech donations, looking at a number of other metrics and boards, that it was fascinating to be able to see how the back end can support the front end on what you're visually seeing with an eye test. And then this really got more into the passion, kind of bursted at that point for me, to where it eventually led, as I started transitioning into Infinity Kingdom and doing content there, that I started experimenting with this bubble that I was just kind of sitting almost like just swishing around constantly, waiting to burst for something for me to kind of attach and grab onto. And so when I got into IK, I started developing my top 25 series that a lot of people now see me doing COD, and that's really where I started kind of working on it initially. And outside of me getting into it there, I think, and outside of me being able to, like I said before, kind of connecting the back end to the front, I think very much so it allows for us to connect a lot of dots. It allows for us to give reason, to give meaning, to give supportive evidence, if you will, to things that we are seeing in the game. And that can be anything from trying to understand, why is it that, there's a certain number of alliances that you'll find in, as an example, in a Zone 3. Why is it that players have different threshold requirements for activity, or why do alliances have different threshold requirements for activity? Why is it that certain alliances that are maybe fighting on the front lines as vanguards versus support alliances, might be looking for particular levels, or have certain expectations versus others? Why is it that we see players on certain like leaderboards, like for example the one I do with the free to plays, right? Like being able to give them shout outs, and to give them some love too as well. That is a lot harder to gather that type of data than it would be publicly. So I think there's a wide range of what data can show us, and I think it can be very educational. Even when I do things like the KVK group previews, like people love being able to see that and see like who's the top dogs, who's the biggest faces and the biggest alliances for this particular group. And so I think there's like this newsworthy segment and story portion as well, outside of it being educational and informative. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started, and the value that I see in it.
Yeah, man, I love it, honestly, because I think everyone on my channel and everyone in the community in general always wants to say thank you for your service, because like you are the one of a kind content creator, honestly, that only does this like data analysis, and without, like you say, all the data looking at servers, but in the next KVKs and stuff, does create almost like, this, you could call them almost like an esport narrative. Like you could create a story, right? You can create that like narrative for the players where you can be like, yo, this server versus this server for the first time, but maybe like 2 seasons down the line, they fight again, right? So it's like, yo, it's the grudge match, and you've got the data to back it all up. So I do love that about it. So let's go into the next question that I've got for you. So with the recent videos you've been doing, I've obviously been watching it myself, and one of them that really did pique a lot of interest was a couple of series you did on games that, you know, in the mobile market had player base, right? And you kind of went through the current player base, how it grew, like all the rankings. You kind of like broke down everything, which was great for, I think it was like over a year period, if I remember correctly. It could have been a little bit longer, but obviously you'll be able to correct me on there, right? But the main question I want to talk about is, from watching that, I've noticed from the trends that most other games like Whiteout Survival and some other newer games that have come out have constantly seen growth. But with Call of Dragons, we've not seen the same, you know, upwards trend of growth, let's just say, right? I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that. Do you reckon it's just because the game's early, or for any other reasons?
Yeah, so you know, this is something that I'm planning to cover a lot more often, and you know, I started this off as kind of my Kingdom Builder history series, if you will, and the idea behind it is just to track data for Kingdom Builders. You know, I think most of us that play games within the genre are hopefully more fans of the genre, and I could say definitely for myself. And so these things are interesting to me, right? It's not only looking at data within COD itself, but you know, how does COD stack up against other Kingdom Builders? And I think, you know, to me, it almost feels like these are questions that hopefully people have been playing games in this genre for a while maybe ask themselves at times, but they just don't know. And so, you know, I was very intrigued and interested in wanting to find that out. And as it specifically pertains to COD, yeah, we were able to go back to July of 2023, so kind of mid-July, so about 8 months ago, as when I initially pulled the data last month, about the middle of the month, around the 18th or so of March. And what we saw was that COD at that time, and let's be very specific here too as well, as I stated when I pulled the data, is that, you know, I was able to look at the concurrent viewership for specifically Samsung users on Android devices, right? So it's like a subset of the group, right? So what we basically said is, like, you would probably have to multiply those numbers conservatively maybe around 4 times to really get kind of like a soft average of what those look like. And what we ended up seeing is that at the time they were a little bit over 17,000 concurrent players back then, to now where there's 11,900. So there's been like a loss of almost 5,500 concurrent players from that time to now. And you know, I think the data shows. I would argue that the data is pretty accurate as far as if you're looking at the timeline of 8 months ago to now, from how COD was doing. Even if you look at something like Google Trends, you'll see the kind of impressions or the activity levels there were a lot higher around global and shortly after global, and then it was kind of teetering off. And I think part of that is because of people realizing and starting to figure out things with like the reset system, and you know, maybe the first go around it was like, oh hey, people were okay with it, but then you get to like the second and third go around, and other things as well that just for some players may have been turnoffs. But I do very much think that even though the game is kind of trending downwards a bit, I still think that there is some opportunity. But I think that, again, if for those of us that are somewhat historians, or at least pay attention to patch notes and updates and community trends, and you know, what they like, what they don't like, the uproars, etc., you know, I think the numbers make a lot of sense, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I like it, honestly, because I do agree, because it is one of those ones where, from my perspective too, just to put a little bit in there, it's a weird one, and I always thought for this next year anyway is the decider year. I thought the first year was kind of how we've kind of seen it, and I like the data you've brought forward, even if it's just a small sample side of, like you say, there's only the Samsung users, but we've got iOS, we've got potential PC clients, BlueStack clients, right? There's all these other clients, right, that could potentially be playing the game. So I do love that, and it's going to go perfectly into the next question, which is, So, what do you hope to see this year when it comes to Call of Dragons? Because obviously, we've seen that future plans video, so we've got a little bit of a glimpse, and obviously, the new patch is out. But what do you actually hope to see come to the game, which will hopefully bring obviously more players back to the game?
Yeah, I think leading off from last question, I think there's a lot of opportunity that the game still has, especially when we consider the factors that have gone into part of why the game, at least concurrent viewership or concurrent playership, probably a better way to say that, have been dipping a bit over the past 8 months. And I think with the addition of Home Kingdoms is going to be, in my opinion, I think a massive boost. One, because I think it's just more familiar to an average amount of players that play Kingdom Builders in this subset of the strategy genre. Secondly, I think that with Home Kingdoms, you're going to allow, hopefully, obviously it'll depend on how they do it, but hopefully it will be something that will be able to engage and interact with an actual community. It will be able to define an actual community. It'll be able to define an identity within kingdoms that they'll be able to hopefully have as well, depending on kind of who comes out, or whether it's one alliance or multiple that come out to kind of be the majority presence or the biggest presences, or have the biggest presence within those kingdoms to essentially direct and guide on where that kingdom will go as far as what its expectations are, its standards, everything from how many alliances are in Zone 3 to Zone 2, how they're doing distribution, how they do behemoth, not just territory, but behemoth distribution. Will they eventually add in something like a king or queen system? Will we be able to send kingdom mails out to every single player? I mean, that's something that's hugely beneficial to home kingdoms and just nurturing a player base, right? One of the most important things I think in any game is a level of information, awareness, and education. And that beautifully kind of leads into players having a better day-to-day gaming experience than not. Right? It's if you have more information than someone else, you're usually more comfortable than someone else, and you're more confident in then going and actually initiating and doing those actions. And that can be anything from participating in PvE events to alliance events to PvP out of the field in KVK, even if it's just showing up for fun events internally within the kingdom. So I think Home Kingdoms, I'm very excited about just the potential. Probably the other thing would be eventually when they expand migration to cross-season. I think that's something that we're looking forward to, and obviously that's different than global migration, right? Cross-season most likely will just be, at minimum, us being able to migrate to kingdoms within the same season, but just outside of our KVK pools of kingdoms. So I think that'll open up some more doors and some more opportunities to where we'll be able to find maybe a little more fluid movement. Well, I should say more a quality movement of players because of Home Kingdoms will come out first, and then we'll see Cross Season come out at some point, where hopefully we're not getting as much extreme movement that we're seeing now, where it's a lot of alliances that are, especially the top alliances and active ones, that are almost trying to like seek out green kingdoms that are normal status, so they have the most amount of slots available to them. Hopefully it'll be more of like, look, we want to plant some roots down, and now we're just basically trying to like filter out some of our inactives and then pick up some more quality. And I think beyond that, we have new factions too as well. I think that's something that's exciting. Hopefully they end up expanding ROW a bit more. I'm sure many of us, myself included, and you and I have talked about this a bit, but being able to eventually have an opportunity to spectate ROW matches outside of just your alliance that you can spectate, right? Before you had to be actually in the ROW match, and then eventually they made it to where you can, even if you're not participating, you can view. But if you want to watch top matches and top alliances go at it, I think like a lot of people would, myself included, that's something that I'd love to see them eventually expand onto. And then the last thing I would say is just quality of life. I think there's so much opportunity in quality of life for what we could see not only in kingdoms but alliances. And I think an example of that, as far as alliances go, is being able to see the last online activity for everyone that's in an alliance. I think maybe being able to have some more deeper stats and details that you can see for players. I think being able to have an opportunity to, for example, like even add a calendar. I mean, man, heck, add a Discord icon into alliances, right? That's something that we saw in that was it Cross Age. Era Conquest has that, Cross Age, and then the new Age of Empires mobile game even has that, and they're in beta. And so, I think that would even be something that would be great. I mean, heck, it'd be great if that thing was public, right? Like, you could click on any alliance and you could find their Discord, and it just allows alliances to grow their communities a lot more. I think there's so many net positives there. I think on the Kingdom side, is the last thing I'll say there is, I think being able to see something like I mentioned with that kind of accept deny system, but I think beyond that, being able to, for example, see like migrants that are coming in and out of kingdoms, right? Like how epic would that be if you're the king or queen or someone that you appoint and you're able to see a log of here's every single person that migrates out of your kingdom, here's everyone that migrates into your kingdom, and then you just have like a little bit of stat info bubble on them. I think being able to see stats, for example, such as, how many active players do you have that logged in at least one time in the past 24 hours? How many people logged in 3 times in the last 24 hours? Right? How many people have logged in one time in the last 48 hours? Like, just things like that would be great if you could see that for statistics kingdom-wide. I just think it would really help a lot of kingdoms better prepare, having more information to utilize that in positive ways that could really impact the kingdoms. So yeah, I mean, again, those are some kind of a long-winded one, but that's my best at condensing.
Yeah, no, it's perfect because that's pretty much it. Because everyone might have guessed is most points are all based on the alliance, right? Obviously, I can give you all gameplay stuff because that's kind of the stuff that I'm more interested in, but I love the fact that we have BN here who's able to give us all the alliance perspectives, kingdom perspectives, because personally that's for me not, it's not what I'm interested in, right? Because I'm an R3 player. I kind of just play Call of Dragons to PvP fight and do the event. So I like the fact that we've got someone here which actually is like tailored to try and learn as much about that type of the style of game compared to my style of game. So it's a great question. I love the response because it's probably a lot different than what people expected, where they probably were maybe thinking you might linger on about the new factions and new heroes and new stuff like that, but you've gone into more interesting points with the way alliances could be run. So I really do enjoy that. So let's go into the next question. Right, so recently even myself have reacted to one of your videos to do with the recent kind of like drama controversy in the community with one of, I would say, a miswording on what you said, because generally the whole video, even in myself, and I said it even in my video, like, I fully agreed with everything you said with the dragon positioning, the choke points, and the way like technically war could be looked at. The only thing obviously I always had a problem with, and I think a lot of people have a problem with, was saying where having the flame dragon wasn't objectively like how you could win a season. It was just like a way you could address winning a season, but you had different measures of it, right? So I just wanted to kind of give you the floor to maybe kind of clarify, confirm with what you wanted to say properly, or your terms basically.
Yeah, I think for the most part, the initial video where we were talking about the ST14 KVK between BXS, LSK, EIS, and then TFS, RR, and EX, where I touched on specifically as we were talking about a part of the video that basically segued and led into other things later on. But in the beginning portions, we were focusing on, kind of what defines a season win. And how I started with the context is talking about how when we look at things visually, from an overhead, right, there's not one side that has overwhelmingly pushed another side via their territory. There's not one side that, you could look at this and say, oh yeah, they've, kind of overwhelmingly or just won the war, as I had mentioned in the video. And so, and also talking about how, again, it was never to take away or to say that anyone who captured the dragon didn't win, as what I touched on in that first video was specifically looking at things from a visual stance on that's more war related, rather than, for example, what we basically have seen in the ST14 group, which is more of an objective victory. Right, because no one got pushed out of final zone. No one, wasn't like one side has 2/3 or 3/4 or 9/10 of the territory locked in. Even though there has been a lot of consistent fighting, and even though one side, the side that's on defense, has some more favorable trades, than the side that has been attacking, even though everyone has been attacking and defending, to be clear. It's just that one side has set up more of a defensive stance than the other side has from the beginning, right, prior to them kind of first connecting and or when they did. And so it was really just to say that, there can be different victories, and I'm very much a believer of that. That's not to say that one victory is more or less of a victory than another. I think we just have preferences. Like for me, I think my preference is that, I would rather see, kind of, more all-out war, so to speak, and, being able to see a lot more of that, particularly in the open field, just more than we might see at choke points. I just personally just think that it doesn't allow for as much diversity, flexibility. I don't think it allows for as many unit types to potentially be shown. I think it limits the amount of strategy and tactics that we can see. However, it does provide different tactics and strategy as well. And it's not to say that I don't like watching it. I just don't know if I would want to see that as like the main focal point where that happens a lot more, or the majority of the time, compared to the open field. But that's all to say that, again, my view simply is I think you can have an objective victory. And even if you don't push out alliances in the final zone, I think you can have a war victory, where I define that as you push out your enemies out of the final zone, and then you capture and hold Dragon. And then I also think you can have like a stalemate victory or a draw, which essentially is where no one captures Dragon, right? Because you're just constantly fighting the entire time, and you never give anyone. Now, I don't know if we have seen that happen yet, but I would argue that that could be one as well, if that were to ever happen. So again, for me, that's just simply how I see it. I think there's just different ways to win, that was really the main part. Obviously, looking at things in hindsight, I can clearly summarize it a lot more efficiently now, because when I was talking about it initially, even though that is what I said, it was in a lot longer and in a lot more words that were used, and so you would really have to watch the video all the way through, along with knowing my history and my background. And I would imagine the same for you, is that it's one thing to say something about someone and not have anything that is historical reference, or anything that says, oh yeah, this person always talks like this about people. I have never said, thankfully, I would never belittle, degrade, have any kind of ill intent or insult anyone, as I never have. And so I think for me, it was just more so about offering a different perspective. And never coming across with my tone in any kind of negative way towards anyone. But again, the majority of the response was, from members of one side, which is normal. I mean, the internet is what it is, and it's kind of our job, so to speak, as creators, to do the best job that we can to illustrate and to iterate exactly what we're explaining. And so, and I said this in one of my follow-up videos, I can effortlessly see how, when I look at things back in hindsight, how, I could have simplified some things a little bit more, or changed some words around. I don't think that the overall message or the objective or the points that I was making needed to be changed, but I do think there could have been some small shifts in the delivery.
Yeah, I agree, because that's pretty much it. I think even during that, you kind of summed it up perfectly. How I think what most people were doing were zeroing in when you was going into talking about the different styles of victory, where there's a war victory, there's a stalemate victory, there's the objective victory and stuff like that. And I think a lot of players just kind of zeroed in on you, basically almost like saying the objective victory wasn't there, but that wasn't what you were saying at all. You were just stating like there's different ways you can win. And even in my video, I even said the same thing. It's like, I think I agree with everything he says, and here I think he just misworded it wrong. And I know, as you've said yourself, right, you've done follow-up videos on it, so I think everyone after this video anyway, if you've got any problems, even I'm going to slap you, right? So let's go into the next question, which is honestly going to be a nice fire one, because it's to do with the new patch. Right, so we have the patch 1.024, technically just landed today as of the recording of this video, and Maggrat and Zayda, or Zabdia, I don't know how you want to pronounce it, have both come out, right? Both brand new archers. So I just kind of want to hear your thoughts before we end today's video on both heroes.
Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to go through each one, but I'd be happy to give my thoughts now as kind of a first look because I haven't seen anything about it before. But like if I'm looking at Zayda to start, and we look at the active, it's what do we have? Normal attack, damage bonus, march speed bonus, and then it looks like they're stat gaining, so it looks like up to 10 stacks, maximum 1 every second. Each stack mark increases normal attack damage dealt, and march speed. It is interesting. Because I would almost view, typically if you're having, like if you look at a traditional MOBA, right, as a DPS, physical DPS champion, right, you almost want some march speed, or a little bit of movement speed, I should say, right, along with damage, attack speed, etc., right, because you want to be able to micro and kite as much as you can. Also, it helps you avoid getting hit by other skills. So, I don't know if we're eventually going to see artifacts get to a point where it's a lot more of, like I'm activating it and then it hits somewhere, right? Like it's not where you could see where the arrow's going to hit. It's almost like, I'm trying to think of a skill, but basically like where you'd activate it and it's like a circle lands, like you have to choose where the circle's going to hit. When you hit it, and then it almost like is a delay where like you as the enemy can see where the circle is and you have like a second or two to react. Like those kinds of things. Or if it's like an arrow that you're firing straight, like an Ash ultimate in League of Legends, right? Something, or like an Ezreal Q or something like that, right? That's like a beam of light that's being thrown out. And if you have enough movement speed and you have quick reactions, you can dodge. I do think this is interesting, especially with that it's being put on a marksman unit. And I just wonder how impactful the march speed will be. I guess more so probably on like engaging, if you're going to have a little bit more opportunity there to kind of pick and choose your battles or get out of poor situations or be able to engage on good situations, especially if you're going to be able to get good trades. I think the normal attack damage bonus, I guess, appears to be fine. I'd have to compare how that might be for some of the other heroes. I think with the second skill, additional damage bonus healing received. This is interesting on the healing received bonus because this reminds me of who is it? Chakcha or whoever the person is who has their fourth skill. I think it is. It is Chakcha. Gosh, man, I can actually remember these things sometimes. Like Chakcha's fourth skill has the HP bonus and the healing factor, right? So it's like automatically heals Legion light wounded units after defeating an enemy Legion. Now this one is obviously more of a like a vampire, right? It's like a lifesteal type of skill it looks like. So I think at least as it pertains to that, it is interesting, right? So it'll say, what is it? Deals damage, receives 5% more healing. So yeah, I guess it's, never mind. I guess it isn't lifesteal then, now that I think about it. I guess it's more of like if you get healed, it's 5% more healing for a healing, like if someone places like a tier of Arbin on your spot, then you'll get additional healing stacked. Having a total brain twist there. But yeah, I still like that. I mean, I think, and this is interesting, is that when you have those types of details that almost like sync up with other artifacts that you could use, whether you're using them defensively, offensively, or neutrally, like this is one of those things where it's like, if you feel like you're putting good PvP pressure in a battle, and you hit that the moment that you're getting to like a particular line that you're trying to set up, you use that right away. And even if you're going to take some damage, right, that's a way to kind of supplement that. Because you wouldn't use this in a sense on her if you're getting pushed. You would use this if you're doing the pushing or you have a line that's established. So, but I think it's nice the way that sounds like it works. Third skill, physical attack bonus, march speed bonus, again, kind of doubling down more on march speed. Really doubling down more on attack. I almost wonder how well this would work with like someone who has like attack penetration, right? So like I don't know if it would be maybe someone like a Nico, as an example for, or no, wait, is it Nico? Why am I forgetting now? No, no, he does, yeah, because he has defense break. Where's 80% chance to deal official damage? That's what I'm saying. I see, like the brain is slow this morning. But like things like that. I mean, you obviously know what I'm saying. But like I think there's opportunities there where if you're going to pair there, or maybe you depend. I guess really there's I think a couple ways you could probably do it. But like that's I think one thing that stands out to me for her. And then was the fourth one, normal attack crit. Wow. So like we're really critting it up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if they're going to end up, I mean, man, maybe with her you could end up running a ranged crit army or Legion of a couple, since there's a couple other heroes that have crit as well. So, I mean, that could be something. Final, Zayda's Legion gains 3 stacks of Dawn Watcher, mark upon entering battle. Okay, so just basically being able to scale that up a lot more for the active?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not active, though. I don't know if you've noticed.
Oh, sorry, passive. It does say passive. I need to be able to reel. I almost automatically assume everything is off the first.
That was the one thing that I think I find interesting, that they brought out 2 archer heroes that in essence are basically like Toha, where you've got 5 passives plastered to them, and if you meet the requirements of those passives, that hero is very strong, right? Because like Maggrat is all about whenever they deal normal attack damage. Same with Zayda, where it's like whenever she's dealing normal attack damage, she's granting these stacks. So I thought the same thing, where even in my video I've kind of talked about Nico and potentially Kadara as easy good marksmen. I think that would work with them, but I'm curious to see how good Syndron is, right? Because Syndron is getting rapid fire, so you're technically dealing an additional normal attack. So is that meaning for like my Zayda, I'm gonna get to my triggers super fast? Or does it mean for my Maggrat, because I'm dealing all that damage, right? Am I healing so much that I'm technically staying really healthy? Almost like an Attila Takeda match, kind of.
Yeah, and it's funny because I bet you it's funny. I read Maggrat's first skill first, and then I went over to Zayda, and Maggrat's passive first skill is a lifesteal.
Yeah, it is.
It is a vampire lifesteal for anyone who's familiar with those, which is interesting because I think she would be the first hero that has a lifesteal factor or characteristic out of any of the other heroes. Where you're actually healing in real time off of the DPS that's being done, which is again more of a kind of a MOBA mechanic, or at least one that I'm familiar with in those types of games. So yeah, no, I really like. I mean, again, I like this idea of them, kind of trying out new things. Both of them have attack bonus. Maggrat has some HP bonus, additional normal attack bonus, another healing. Oh wow, healing. Oh yeah, because she's
Garrison.
Yeah, she's Garrison. Yeah, for the 4 skill. But still has a healing factor on here. They receive healing when Margaret Garrison armies in a siege. They receive. Wow. Okay, so it's kind of a different way of doing it then, where it's like Chakcha's is at the end of battle. Hers is when she's garrisoned in a city or stronghold. They receive that. Wow, and it's every 10 seconds and gain 4%. Interesting. I guess you'd have to see how the reports look for that. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that she has her base healing rate from constantly doing damage. Man, it is very interesting.
Yep. It does honestly give me, like you say, very Attila Takeda vibes from Rise of Kingdoms, where you look at both heroes, and obviously if you combine both heroes like they're supposed to be kind of designed to, you can see it where they all want to do this normal attack damage to keep on a healing so they can keep dealing that normal attack damage at a higher rate, right?
Yeah.
And then they're able to like hit them with big bursts instead of like Takeda, which did that burn sort of style of damage instead. So I feel like they've gone for like the same philosophy but in a different direction, which I find very interesting, where it's all passive, all normal attack. It's nothing about actives.
It's such a good point you bring up, because typically with the passives, and obviously depending on what the passive first skill is, you would almost imagine that because you don't have to worry about an activation time, you don't have to worry about meeting particular prerequisites for it to be activated, that your first skill is already giving you more overall value and return because it's basically activated automatically. Compared to having to wait for an actual active skill. So you would almost think that passive first skills have a potential to be more efficient and have more value out there. But yeah, it's just even her awakening, where it's like when the Legion triggers 5 times, their next normal attack deals 500% more damage, and the variable healing works where the lifesteal scales better as you attack more units and higher tier units or stronger units. So, man, that's
I think I love that.
More units to defeat, higher level, and the higher their levels for the units. Wow, man, if anything, I'm just excited to see what those reports look like and how the trades are on that. I think you bring up a good point.
I think everyone, I'm not gonna lie, after watching probably your reaction to the hero, because I know you don't really do too many like hero reactions, I feel like, on your channel, because it's like not really your niche thing. I love the fact that your reaction is just probably as excited as everyone else who's seen these guys for the first time. So I love to see it. So what I'm gonna say though is thank you for having you on obviously the channel. This has been Unfiltered with me, obviously MrSneakyy, and the one and only Bossnasti. Where can obviously everyone who's been watching catch you on YouTube's?
Yeah, I'm simply at Bossnasti with a Y, or sorry, with an I, not a Y. And you can find me there. No, this has been an absolute pleasure. Snake, thanks so much for having me on, and this has been great, nice and concise, and I know different than my format usually for what I like to do on interviews. But I think that's the joy of it. It's almost like what you see a lot of other people on YouTube doing, where it's like, oh hey, we'll do an interview in a chicken shop, or we'll do an interview with hot wings, or something like that, right? It's just kind of your own flavor. So no, man, I love it. And again, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you, man. And I will say, everyone else, you know what to do. Smash a like, comment, and subscribe. Till the next video. Stay safe, guys. Stay sneaky, and peace out.